Hello everybody, long time no see. So school has started back up as the world reopens, live sound gigs have been happening again, and I've been lucky enough to work with like 3 or 4 different wedding bands. I'm playing weddings again, I'm doing sound for weddings again, and my own band, Visiting Wine, is actually starting to gig again, which is more than I could ever ask for. The other thing that I'm really excited about is that I actually got an iPhone 12 Pro. And so that is what I'm filming this video on. I figured not only could I reconnect with the community, but it'd be a great way to test out the camera on this thing. However, the audio is going through the lav mic that I have on my little strap here, and that is going into my iPhone 8 Plus, which I just upgraded from. The camera on that has like dust particles in it, so whenever there's any sort of light, it has a bloom to it and it has trouble focusing, so this is a very needed upgrade. One of the things that I wanted to do in this video was talk about 4 things that I found to be kind of non-standard but useful as I'm getting back into live sound. Things that I had to actually sit and dream up, per se, to make my life easier, to be able to fit everything into my car. As a bonus little fifth piece of knowledge, I took the seats out of my SUV, which has actually given me a lot more space. If you can do that with your car, it might prevent you from having to get, a trailer or a hitch to carry things on the back. The seats in the RAV4 don't just come out like they would in a minivan. You actually have to unbolt them, but I probably increased what I can hold in my car by like 20%. I just got so much more vertical space. So 5th bonus tip before we roll into the actual sound stuff. Hey, look. Grapes, have fun. First tip is to use heavier duty light stands as drum overheads. Now I had to do this with a few different adapters, but basically what I needed was a crossbar sort of T light stand. Then I went and got a 1/4-20 bolt. Just got that at like a hardware store. On that upside down 1/4-20 thread, I then put a 1/4-20 to 5/8 mic thread adapter, which then fed into a dual mic stand. And that's where I put my 2 small diaphragm condensers hanging upside down above the drum kit. This worked wonderfully because it was heavy duty enough that it wasn't going to tip over with the slightest breeze. It's also wonderful because since the stand itself is about 8 feet tall, I can put it farther away from the drummer and have the mics hanging from a bigger distance, so the drummer doesn't feel sort of crowded with a bunch of stands all over the place. On that same note, the second tip is to get mic stand extender clamps. This is what I mean by that. I found so many uses for these, it's not even funny. I've been able to use them to clamp hi-hat mics onto mic stands. I used it back when I was filming my partner's recital on that crazy rig with the extendable mics up top. The most recent way I used one was actually in conjunction. Wow! The most recent way I used one was actually in conjunction with that light stand that I used to hang my overheads. The drummer wanted a mic to be able to talk to the rest of the band as sort of a talkback mic. I used the extension to put a boom arm coming off of that light stand so he could have his mic basically right in front of his mouth without me needing to throw another stand somewhere around him. I've used it in situations where I could put multiple horn mics coming off of one stand, so I didn't need to bring 4 mic stands. I just brought 2 with some extra boom arms. I don't know what they're cutting over there. The third tip is for when you need to bring lights to illuminate your band, but you don't really have the room to bring extra tall mic stands. The solution that I found when I was working with a band called Soul of Boston was to actually buy C-clamps that you can get. I mean, I got mine at Guitar Center. They were like $8 a piece. You can get them on Amazon. I'll link to some below. These were especially useful because I don't have fly points on the top of my Mackie thumps. I've seen some people attach lights to the top of speakers using the fly points and just a normal lighting bolt, but I didn't have that. So what the C-clamps allowed me to do was actually just clamp the lights to the handle of the speakers. Now, this obviously isn't going to be as useful if your speakers are below eye level, because then you'll just be shining the light on your band's chests. But if, for instance, they're on flat ground and the speakers are above eye level, it worked super well. I was really, really happy with it, and I've used it basically at every gig since. This one isn't quite as sort of non-standard, but it's something that might just be a good idea, especially if you're a smaller scale sound person like myself and you're doing smaller venues. And that is, if you have a guitar player who's playing through a real amp, I know, it still happens, have them turn it around towards them and mic it. That way you don't need to give them as much if they have a monitor, and also it keeps the direct line of the guitar amp away from the audience. You'd be surprised how much quieter an amp sounds when it's facing backwards. On top of that, it keeps you from having just one direct straight line of sound from the amp. If you're inside, the main tone will be coming out of the PA, and you'll still get some bounce back from the wall behind them, but it's gonna be more spread out and it's not gonna be as directional. So you don't have to worry about the people right in front of the amp not hearing anything and getting their ears chewed to pieces by the mid-range. Also, I don't know which of the 3 camera lenses I'm supposed to be looking at, so there's a chance that I'm gonna be looking past you this whole video. I apologize. This guitar situation has worked especially well for me if I was doing an outdoor gig, because if the guitar amp isn't bouncing off anything, especially if you're like on the shore and you're just shooting it over the water, I mean, no one's gonna hear the amp, it's just gonna blast into the ocean. So those are the 4 sort of non-standard solutions I've had to come up with. They've all worked super well, especially with this new phone camera. I'm gonna try to be a bit more consistent with filming pieces of gigs, getting footage of the things I talk about, just not only for my archives, but to actually share with you. For any chorus teachers out there as well, I do have a couple pieces for sale on my website, especially if you teach middle school. I have a piece called It's Quite All Right. That's really written for middle school voices. The parts are very attainable, it's nice and groovy, it's not super cheesy. Highly encourage you to check that out. I'll put a link to it down below. As always, if you have any comments or questions, put them down below. I'll do my best to get back to them, and I'd love to hear what non-standard sound solutions you've been able to come up with as things have opened up as well. My name's Greg, thank you for stopping by, and I'll see you next time.